Okay, the last thing we looked at was our insert, and we spoke about how each element works, although some of the content was not active as we were working with it. I think during the course of our learning, we'll include missing parts. Today, we actually want to work with the design, and the design now requires us to have a new document. And it's pretty basic because there's not that many things that are there. So it's themes, document formatting, colors, fonts, paragraph spacing, effects, and things like that. So design won't be too big of a challenge, or rather of an issue. So let's create a new document. And with our new document, we want to pretty much work with our design. So our design pretty much works with us having some content in our document. So for example, we start with our themes. Okay, we've got a theme that contains the following. It just contains the colors, the font, the layout, etc. So let's say I pick the slice one, that then becomes my theme. I can now be able to put my content where I then maybe have a heading, the new stage for a school, like that. So what this then means, that can be my title, and I can highlight it. Okay, I then pick my style, and I want this to be a heading one. You actually then notice that my headings have also changed because I've put it under a theme. So the theme itself becomes what the rest of my text becomes. So at the local primary school, the parents have concluded they need a new stage to be constructed, like that. So as just a sign of how this then works, we can see that we've got different styles that we can work with. Okay, and for us to then see what our styles do, we then maybe need to have maybe a few examples. Okay, so the next bit would be we can have the current stage, and then with the current stage we can highlight the current stage. We go to home. Actually didn't even need to come to home. We just come here under styles. We put it as a title. Okay, so you then see that if, our heading, our text, and our title have all changed to suit the design that's there. However, we can be able to highlight everything and then change, or rather highlight on each of the different designs so that we can see the text that we would actually want to have, or the design that we would actually want to have. Okay, so this then gives us a hint of what our design pretty much does. Okay, so this then becomes our heading, that becomes our text for the body text, that then becomes our title. At the same time, we can come here under colors, and then we can pick the colors that we want. So if we select a range of colors, this then changes how the appearance of each of our text and its layout, okay, that we would want to see and we would want to work with. At the same time, we can also work with the fonts where we can pick a font. to say this is the type of font that we want, and let's change our font to suit a design. So it then means with the entire context of what you're working with, the font is universal. However, we've got effects as well. We can put effects on some of our text, but we would need to at least have selected some text. We've got paragraph spacing, where we can also pick how we would want our paragraphs to work. So let's say, for example, I get my lorem ipsum, like we usually do. Uh, this pretty much then gets us to start working. So let's just paste our lorem ipsum so that we've got some text. Okay, so this is the text that we've got. And let's say I want to put an effect on this. I then select my effects and I put an effect. I don't think it shows at this particular instance. So we might need to actually have some sort of diagram for the effect to show. Paragraphs. I think for paragraphs, this should work. Let me reduce the size a bit so that you see. Okay, I just moved some stuff. Okay, it's becoming a bit tricky. Okay, back to normal. So let's say I highlight this and I want to work with my paragraph. I can then say tight, and then it looks like that. Or I can say open, or I can even say double. Okay, so what this then does, it pretty much just adjusts all the paragraphs that are there, which more or less will look as our styles that we're working with. So the design itself might be something that you might want to work with if you are lazy or you don't want to be able to uh, do everything the way it has been done. Okay, so that's pretty much most of our design. We can put a watermark as well. A watermark is confidential, do not copy. You can also have your own custom watermark to say text watermark, and then we put our text and say do not illegally copy this document. Like that. We click on apply and then OK. We can close. You actually then see that it tells us do not illegally copy this document. That then becomes a watermark. And on every page that we'll then have, we'll actually have that do not copy. So let's say I put 3 pages, you actually see that the watermark is standard on all pages, including the page that has our text. The next thing is our page color, where we can be able to change the color of the page. So it becomes tricky if we put other colors because the watermark might not show. So let's say we put gray, you then see that the watermark disappears because of the color of the page. We can put a black color. It then sort of, it's still gray, but gray almost black. It then changes the look of the page. Let's just put everything back to white so that at least this is visible. We've also got page borders where we can pick the type of page borders that we want. And we apply to the whole document. We click on OK. And then we'll have a page border inserted into or onto our page. So this then becomes part of whatever it is that you're hoping to see on your page, and you can design it as you see fit or as you proceed. Okay, that's our design section. We have our layout section, which has the following. It's got our margins, it's got our orientation, our size, our columns, breaks, line numbers, hyphenation, spacing, and indent. So with this particular portion, it's a portion that might not be very key for most users because it's in reference to how we use our document. And the content that we've got here is mainly for how we are then going to give an output to our Word document. So for example, if I come here on margins, you actually then see we've got normal, we've got narrow, we've got moderate, we've got wide, we've got mirrored, we've got Office 2003 default. What do all these mean? These simply mean we are playing around with our paper to suit a given perspective. So by default, this is our normal. As you can see, maybe before we even get to explain there, you can see that on this paper, which is our print view, we've got this ruler that's actually starting from there and ending there. And then the page actually starts from this point to that point. So it then means everything that we are finding or everything that we'll find in this particular document is within this text. When it's within that text or within that section, it means all the text is actually stored there. So if we then change from normal to narrow, we'll actually see that the ruler itself actually changes where the gray area has shifted. It used to be somewhere here where the 1 is. It has actually now shifted to that particular point. If we do the same with the next one, which is moderate, you actually see it shifts again and gives us different perspectives of the ruler. And if it's on moderate, you actually see that everything now has been sort of cramped up into a small space. On mirrored, we almost have the same context. It's almost similar to where we started, but there's a slight difference. We've also got the default 2003, which gives us different aspects. So what this then means is we are looking at this ruler on the top, which is the horizontal. We're also looking at this ruler on the bottom, which is the vertical. And we'll be able to change the way our document looks and can be presented. So like I said, this is pretty much basically for your advanced stages of Microsoft Word. We've also got orientation, where by default, this is portrait. We can actually make it as landscape. And if I put it as landscape, we actually put the document or the page on its longest side. So the longest side becomes the top side, and then the shortest side becomes the bottom side. So in other words, it now depends on the type of document you want to print and how you'd want to print that particular document. At the same time, we can also have the size which then becomes the paper that you want to print on. So if it's letter, the size is different. Maybe let me reduce the size of the page so that you can see what this does. If it's a tableau, you then see the page is slightly bigger. If it's a legal, we reduce the page. If it's a statement, we decrease the page. If it's an executive, we increase the page slightly. If it's an A3, the page becomes larger. If it's an A4, the one that we were using, we reduce the size. If it's an A5, we also reduce the size to something smaller. If it's a B4, we increase the size because it's bigger. If it's a B5, we reduce the size slightly. So this size bit pretty much works with the type of paper that you'll be working with. So by default, most of us work with an A4. So if we put an A4, we'll be able to print when it comes to actually printing. So this then becomes the first bit of our layout. So would want to now add a bit more content. So with our content, I think let's go to a new page. We still want to use our lorem ipsum, so let's actually just copy it as it is. So with our lorem ipsum has shown us the next thing we want to work with, which is our column. Okay, so this becomes our text. We're explaining what lorem ipsum is, but we want to make this text into columns. So we'll just rather right click everything from start to finish. We select columns, we make them 2 columns, and then you'd actually then get to see that this is how our text would look. We now have 2 columns, and our text is presented in that particular manner. So we just highlight whichever text we want, we come to columns, we select the number of columns we want, and then our text is put into column. Okay, at the same times now, we've got breaks. Okay, and if you can see when we get to breaks, we've got variations in the breaks. We've got a page break, we've got a page break, which is this one. We've got a column break, which is that one. We've got a text wrapping. We've got a next page. We've got a continuous, even page, odd page. Okay, so let's say we want to have a column break. So we select that bit, we come to page breaks, and then we select column. What this then means is in our column, we have a break in the column, and then we put what we have broken to the next page or to the next column. However, with what I've done, it's quite difficult to see because where does it come from? Was somewhere here, and after putting our column break, it came down. Okay, so let's say I select this content again. I go to breaks, I select column. It also breaks the column, but in this case, I think it deleted my text. Let me just undo. Okay, breaks, we select column, and it sort of has pushed our content to the bottom. But it's a bit tricky to see columns because columns are not very easy to discern. Okay, so let's say we also put on the last line, we go on breaks, we put a page break. Okay, the moment we put a page break, um, it takes us from the last section of the line that we're on, and it takes us to a new page. So a page break pretty much takes us from this line to a new page. We also have text wrapping. So text wrapping, unfortunately, we can't see it in just text itself. Text wrapping is similar to what we're doing with tables. Okay, for us to pretty much see how our text wrapping works, we need to put a table. Maybe let's just put a table there. We paste. Okay, I thought we still had our text selected. Let's select our text once more. We copy, we come here, we paste our text. Okay, It's still giving us a column. We don't want a column. Let's go back to our layout. Let's just put it as one thing. This we don't want it there. We want it somewhere there. We would want to have our text wrapping. So let's select text wrapping. Okay, let's do our text wrapping. Okay, our text wrapping is not working the way it's supposed to, but maybe I think I'm doing it wrong. But text wrapping is just supposed to go around our text. Because for example, if we select our table, we've got text wrapping that shows on our table. Let me just at least show you how our table text wrapping works. Borders and shading. Oh, this is not what we want. Yes, we want this one. So click on OK. Let's just undo. So we right click, we go to table properties, we go to text wrapping, we say around, we click on OK. And you see with the text wrapping for the table, it's supposed to give our text wrapping like that. I'm not sure why for the design it's not giving us the same output, but this is the output of our text wrapping. I would need to figure out why it's behaving like that because it's not supposed to be working like that. At the same time, we can also have line numbers where we can say continuous, and it's just showing us the numbers that we've got in our text or our line numbers, but we don't need that. We've also got hyphenation. We can say automatic or manual. What this simply means is we're just putting wherever we need to put a hyphen, it automatically picks and gives us that hyphen that we need within our text or for our text. At the same time, we've got a paragraph where we've got left, right, before, and after. This just simply works with our margin. And this is also just these points that are specified there where we've got top, left, bottom, right. So when we're working with paragraph, we can be able to also just play around with these figures to give us the same output. However, we've got the next section, which is the arrange section, which we'll be working with in the next few steps. Resume. Okay, so with our text wrapping, I think this is where our arrange comes in. So let's say I select this content. I'm not sure why it's not working because we're supposed to be able to play around with the position, the text wrap, bring forward, bring backward, select. No, this is not it. I'm sure there's something that I'm not doing right because we're supposed to be able to work with these options, but they're not giving us the output that we're hoping to get. Okay, but as at now, I think we've covered most of what the layout deals with and most of what the layout covers. However, let's be able to move on to the next thing. The next thing we want to work with is our references. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is work with our references. Our references will pretty much have us moving around from place to place. Certain things that we work with we find throughout Microsoft Word. But however, we need to have some sort of content that we've got in our document, and we can be able to work with it from the onset. So let's say I put, oh, I can't do more than 5. Okay. Okay, so let's say this is what we have generated. I'm not sure why it's also copying with that image. Let's see. We paste it like that. So that then becomes our content. Okay, so this, let's see what these are. That's normal. This is a normal. That's also normal. Okay, so we would want to just have some content like we learned in the previous. We can put a page break. Oops, we don't want the page break to be there. Let it actually start there. We'll put a page break. Okay, we also start from this point. Put 2 page breaks. Okay, that's fine. Let's actually change this to a heading 1. Let's have some more content. I will just paste. Is heading 1 as well. But to differentiate the two, let's put 2 on this one. Let's put 1 on that one. We paste the content again. Change this to a lorem ipsum, heading 1 again. In this case, to see the difference, we then make it a 3. Okay, so this then becomes our text plus our headings. So for us to be able to do the next part, we need to mark each of our text with a heading 1, and then come back to our references, and then we come to the start of where we'd want to put our table of contents. So let's just say automatic table, and then there we go, we'll have our table of contents. Okay, so first thing that we did was we just put some text. In our text, we marked the headings as heading 1s, and then when we generate our table of contents, we can be able to put our table of contents. Okay, what happens if we want to view any of these pages? We just need to press Control on our keyboards, then we select the link that we want, and then it takes us to the relevant page that we want to work with. Okay, let's add more. Let's say I add some more. One more. Okay, so there's this lorem ipsum. We put this as 4. We'll put that as 5. We'll put that as 6, like that. So we can go to table of contents. We select, and then you'd actually notice those were still heading 1s, but in a slightly different manner. We can now be able to update these table of contents. Okay, so from chapter 1 to chapter 6, we've got our content, or rather, it's not chapters, it's actually lorem ipsums. Okay, so for example, I can come here and then change this and put a title and say this is the conclusion, like that. So it then means I've put the conclusion in changing this. However, I can come back to my table of contents, I right click, and then I say update fields, entire table, I click on OK, and then you notice my table of contents element changes. So those are some of the things that we can work with in or with our table of contents. However, at the same time, we can be able to change certain things. Let's say at this particular point, I want to put some text here. Okay, we're still working with our lorem ipsum so that it's faster. But our lorem ipsum has somehow put some content that is not supposed to be there. Okay, so let's just come here, we select home, I undid what I did. I make sure this is 12, I make sure it's normal, and then I just say keep source formatting, so that doesn't change that much. And then I want to change all of this to make it standard. So I just come here, I then say clear formatting, that everything is in a specific order. And that way I can be able to then play around with my references the way I see fit, or I can be able to do what I'm hoping to do. Okay, so for example, I've then put everything in a standard format. I now need to put a footnote. So a footnote pretty much comes where there is some reference. So let's say we want this particular aspect to have a footnote. So I select insert footnote, and then I state quote from famous person, like that. So what this then means is I'll have this one as a reference to my footnote, and then the reference is actually at this point in my text. I can also have another reference, maybe of a footnote there, where I can put insert footnote, and then I say research by author. Okay, I can put another footnote somewhere in my content, maybe somewhere there. I put insert footnote. I then say internet value, like that. So we've got quote from a famous person, research by an author, internet values, and you notice that each and every footnote that I've put, we can see the number which is there. For example, with 3, with 1, and with 2, which is somewhere there. So those are our footnotes. However, we can also insert an endnote. Okay, an endnote goes to the end of our content, and then we can also type out text like this. This marks the full document that we had. Okay, so that then makes this an endnote. So our endnote pretty much goes to the end of the document, and then we can put whatever content we wanted. However, with the next and previous footnote, we can go to our footnote using this particular section where it just takes us to each element that we've got within our document. At the same time, I can say show notes, and then it shows the footnotes that are there. Show notes again, it then shows me the end notes that are also currently within my document. From there, we then want to move on to the next section, which is citations and bibliography. So how do these work? We'd want to be able to put citation, okay? And as we know, a citation gives us a specific reference to what we're working on. So in this particular instance, we actually use this website to cite this lorem ipsum content. So how do we then do that? We can put insert citation. We can then put add a new source. So our new source then comes here where we need to specify where we got this information. So we can say it's from a website like that. And then we look for the author. Sometimes some websites have authors. So we need to figure out who authored this. However, we don't have a specific author. We can maybe call this person the author, the email address. We use our email address as the author. We paste. We then look for the name of the website or the name of the page, which is lorem ipsum. That's the name of the page. So just copy that. We come there with the name of the page. We select the name of the website, which is this one. Control copy. We come there and we paste. No, we need the URL. We put that there. The name of the website is lorem ipsum as well. So we copy that. Sorry, undo, copy that, paste that there. The year, we call it 20, put our year, which is 2021. The month is October. The day is 25. We click on OK, and then we've got our reference. Okay, so that can be a reference for this particular page. We can put another reference. Let's say we want to put a different reference. We go to insert citation, add new source. We pick maybe a book section. Okay, so it can have an author. Let's say this was done by Pontius Pilate. Uh, the Rise to the Throne. Book author Pontius Pilate. That book title, The Rise to the Throne. This was done in 1912. It's got 500 pages. It was done in Rome, and the publisher is New Age. That's the name of the publisher. We click on OK, and then we've got our citation. So there's many citations that we can actually work with, and each citation that we are putting, we are then getting that added to our content. However, our citation can also be a placeholder, okay, whereby we say source document, like that. So it's a source document that will then work as our reference, okay. At the same time now, when we're done with all this, we can be able to come to our last section and we can put a bibliography, okay, which then looks like that. So it just takes our sources, displays them there, and we can be able to start working with them from there. Okay, so that is our references, or those are our references. Okay, so we might just need to learn a bit about references more, whereby we can do more than just what we looked into. For example, this is our bibliography. So if we were to put a title there, this will be a bibliography like that. But at the same time, we can also have articles that are not under the bibliography. Okay, we could also have references. So if we go to insert, in this particular instance, I think it's just picking bibliography because that's what we had. But we can have a bibliography, references, and works cited. Okay, so like we did, this was our bibliography. That's the first one. Let's just maybe move a bit further down. We can also have our various options. Okay, maybe let's put it here because it's just reading the bibliography. We can have references, which are similar to our bibliography. We can also have works cited. Okay, so they all pretty much bring out the same content, but it's dependent on the nature of whatever it is that you want to add to the document. As at now, I'm not too sure what the difference may be, but I'm sure in future lessons I can be able to give you what they are. At the same time, our style can be APA, which is the default, Chicago GB7714, GOST name sort, GOST title sort, Harvard, IEEE, ISO 690, first element and date, ISO 690 numerical reference, MLA, SIST02, Turbine, 6th edition. So in general, this is now dependent on the type of work that you're doing. And as your work increases, you then need to know which element you are working with. At the same time, we can also go to manage sources, where we then see the number of sources that we've got. So there are sources that we have put and there are sources that we haven't put. So for example, this vet science one, we actually haven't used it. We can actually copy it and put it to our content. We click on close. At the same time, if we haven't used it or if we have put it there, we might actually have it as a works cited, though we haven't actually referenced it, which is simply because we have put it as part of our sources. However, we haven't referenced it. So we would need to be very careful with how we work with our sources and how we actually insert them. So for example, I could also add another citation where I say add new source. I can say it can be a case. Okay. So I then say um, Tom Bambo versus Standard Chartered Bank. Okay, case number, we can have our case number 2012 court magistrate court year was 2012, month was April, day was 15. Okay, so we click on OK, and then this then becomes what we see in our citation. If we come back to our works cited, we can update citations, and then we'll actually get to see that our case is now part of our works cited. So with cases, it's now mainly dependent on what exactly you're working on and the content that you want to be able to put in the works that you are working with. So that's our citations and bibliography. However, at the same time, we can also have a caption. And our caption works this way. For example, with our bibliography, we did not have a title like that. So that's where our caption comes in. However, our caption works with something that can be recognized as a caption. So it comes back to the captions we used to put for our images and our tables. So in this particular case, since we don't have any images or tables, it then becomes difficult. But however, if we come to insert and we put an image, let's say we put that as our image. By the way, I don't have any rights to this image. I come back to my references, I put insert citation, sorry, I said insert caption. I then call this picture in the wild, like that. Click on OK, and then the caption actually applies to this. However, the moment that I've got an image, now I can put my table of figures. I click on OK, and then since I've got one figure, I can then now have this table figure show up. So I've got a table of contents and a table of figures. That's how our tables work. Although in this particular order, I've just done it in a random manner. Our table of figures is actually not supposed to be at the bottom here. It's supposed to be somewhere close to our table of contents, which was all the way up here. Okay, so let's say I come back to my table of contents. Soon after my table of contents, I'm supposed to have a table of figures. So I insert, click on OK, and then I've got my table of figures. So that's how they work. At the same time now, we're then saying with an index. Our index comes in as a reference point. So we want to index certain things within our document. However, to index or to mark our elements, we then need to have some text that we're working with. Let's say we come to this particular point and I type out, this is a sample index, like that. I can highlight this and then I say mark entry. Okay, so it becomes the main entry. We want to have the sub entry. Okay, so maybe we can say this becomes our sub entry, and we can cross-reference to say if there is a specific location that we want to work with or a cross-reference, we can then pick from there. And then page number, format, we then mark it. Okay, so we close it. So what this then means is we have put a reference to the text that we've got. And then the moment we've marked it as an entry now, it then means it's an entry that we can actually now be able to use within our table of contents or our table of figures at any given point in time. So if I right click and I say update fields, update entire table, you then actually see we've got our references, works cited, lorem ipsum, but our text that we have marked, we have marked it, but it's actually not something that will show up on the table of contents. However, with the indexing, we then need to know how to actually reference it in terms of our table of contents. So for example, when it says mark entry, let's undo this. No, the last thing we did was the table of contents, so we can't work with it like that. Okay, so let's try and insert index, right? So with the index now, at least with this particular point, we can see how this shows. We need to have a specific element that we're working with. So for example, we say this theory indented, we mark the entry, We come back to our entry. We can put a cross-reference, and maybe we say lorem. Uh, we mark this and we click on OK. And then what this then means is we have marked our content. However, I would still need to maybe add on to this because I'm a little bit lost a bit about how these indexes work, but they almost work in the same aspect as our table of content uh, layout. However, we can also remove these paragraph signs by clicking on our home, and then we click on this item here, which shows us the elements that have been marked. So I would still need to figure out how we work with our index. The next one is our table of authorities. So if we click on table of authorities, we've got cases, we've got statutes, we've got other authorities, rules, treaties, regulations, constitutional provisions, you name it. So some of these will work more or less in the same manner as our table of figures, table of contents, references, you name it. But I think with our index and table of authorities, I'll work with them in a separate word lesson so that I at least I give you a bit more depth on how these work.